serial entrepreneur, an author, and an influence expert. Karen, it is such a pleasure to have you here today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Well, Yana, it's really wonderful to be here as well, and thank you. I'm happy to share.
Well, then let's start. And my first question for you would be, I know that you're on your second business right now, and they're completely different.
That's right.
So let's first talk about the first one that was in the fashion industry. So when did you start it, and what the industry was that?
You know, it would be really interesting that, in fact, I have no fashion background.
That's great. It's like me with YanaTV, you know?
I actually started, my first career as an auditor.
Auditor.
With KPMG.
So I can't picture you doing auditing.
That's right. So, because I graduated from the School of Accounting, and I was set that my future was going to be in finance and in audit and accounting.
Can I ask a tricky question? If your parents wanted you to study accounting?
The things that process of elimination, I think that I always was very interested in business.
Okay.
So, accounting seemed like something which was a natural fit. It allowed me to understand the numbers of any organization. So that's why when I moved into my audit career, I thought it was really exciting.
Yes.
Spent about 7 years there in audit and consulting.
So you were working for the company?
For KPMG.
For KPMG for 7 years, and then you
That's
decided
right.
to become an entrepreneur.
So then...
How did you make the decision?
The decision is a really interesting word. In fact, it wasn't a decision.
Yes.
I decided to take a break, a sabbatical, and I spent about a year in Amsterdam.
Nice.
Yes. And what I was doing, I just, did not-for-profit work. I was helping women who were trafficked in the sex industry.
Okay.
It was called a quarter-life crisis, finding myself and just doing something completely different. But what was really interesting was that, when I was in Europe, I suddenly had the idea of, creating a fashion label of East meets West, headpieces.
Yes.
And I had a lot of ideas of my own, drew a lot of concept papers.
Clearly very creative.
Which I didn't get to do so much as an auditor. But the interesting thing was, I just felt that, hey, this is something I wanted to do. I wanted to see it happen. And I could picture, a lot of women wearing my pieces. So you call it just pure bravado.
Only for face, okay? But I like to call those things.
And just going on the gut, I decided that, hey, I'm actually going to get started.
So it's like you woke up one morning and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to start my own fashion label.
With a lot of inspiration.
With a lot of inspiration.
With a lot of inspiration. And so then I had two designers working for me. And we then started a whole range of, the label's called fondue. When you wear it on your head, it's almost like your head gets transformed. Your hair, your whole outlook gets transformed. Run it for 2 years.
Yes.
Literally just, I remember knocking on doors, just to get the business off the ground. And then I realized, the business it took off. We were relatively successful. And then I realized that, my interest didn't lie in helping women to look good only. What I really loved was to help women feel good and be at their best. So I actually then started a second business while running my fashion business.
At the same time?
At the same time. And so that was when I was, representing international best-selling authors and trainers and speakers and flying them down to Singapore to run training programs for MNCs. So at one point I was running two businesses at the same time. Yeah, so what happened is that then my second business then has evolved into what we are today, Influence Solutions. So it's been 10 years that I've been in the learning and development industry. We have evolved now that we operate in 4 languages. English,
that's amazing.
Mandarin,
and I know your
Korean.
growth was really, really
That's
fast.
right. So,
but before you moved into learning and development, so you had this fashion business that you sold after 2 years, right? So what was your biggest lesson from your first business as an entrepreneur?
I think the biggest, most humbling lesson
Yes.
was that in fashion, I expanded really fast. So I started doing a B2B business where I would supply high-end boutiques and retail shops with our hair pieces. And with that success, I thought, I'm going to expand it. I'm actually going to go and open a shop and do retail.
Yes.
The best part was I did it without a game plan. I literally just expected the business to take off on its own, but it didn't. So one of the biggest lessons that I learned was actually, that business is not just purely built on passion and on ideas. And that's one of the biggest myths. It is actually built on processes. And so
that's actually great.
Yes.
I think it's also really very good for our audience, to understand it. That maybe that it is crucial to be very inspired and passionate about what you really want to do. If you want to become an entrepreneur, to start it. But then, as you say, if you want to make it very successful, you have to very quickly understand and implement processes and systems and plan. You need to have some milestones.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you're going to run out of steam, right, eventually.
And out of money.
And out of money, exactly. What also happens very often, yes.
That is right. So probably, I did kind of run out of money. So that's why the processes and cash flow is really important. And so that was one of my biggest lessons.
That's a great lesson, okay? And I think that didn't stop you from moving forward, right? So I guess a good thing about people who constantly improve, that, we are learning from mistakes. And then you decided to go and open, or even during the time you decided to open your second business about learning and development.
Yes.
And you started bringing the speakers in, and now you became a trainer yourself. So what maybe was your biggest lesson now from running your second business up until today?
The best part is remember my biggest lesson is that, don't run two businesses at the same time.
That's a good one.
And so now two has become one.
Yes.
That's actually really important because, it's really hard, to multitask. Especially when multitasking two businesses at the same time. There was a point of time I remember in a day, and I was just asking myself, how do I even have 48 hours a day? No matter what I did, I was neglecting some aspect of either business.
Yes.
And what really helped me to decide what to focus on was, can I see myself, doing whatever I was providing in that particular business for the next 20, 30 years?
That's a good point.
And for fashion, I realized it's like a lover.
Yes.
It was fickle. I loved the rush of people wearing my pieces. I loved the rush of being able to sell, the pieces to, a lot of socialites. And however, I think I loved the end result of the business, which was the supposedly glamorous side,
the lover side. And then you decided that you want to find a husband, and you set up your development business. You said, I can be with that business for the next 20 years. I understand the logic behind
So
that.
in the end, we got to decide, like what is, is it going to be a marriage or is it just going to be a fling?
Yes.
And that really helps you to decide whether you're going to invest your emotions into that business. Because, business is really, really like a long-term marriage commitment. Especially now if the business has grown. I mean, I have people that I work with and a much larger team. It's no longer just a fling.
Yes,
it is
absolutely.
something that we are vested in for the long term. And so that's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. Are you in it for the long term?
Okay.
Can you see yourself doing this? Because then you realize that passion is not enough. It is actually more of conviction that would tide you through and allow you to persevere. Conviction with what you're doing, that what you do has a greater meaning.
Yeah.
So that's been one of my biggest lessons.
That's a fantastic lesson, Karen. So now for the people, who are running their own businesses, who may be thinking about starting their own business, given you have been now in that industry now for many, many years, what do you think, what actually makes or breaks a really good entrepreneur?
what really makes or breaks a very good entrepreneur? I mean, it's a really interesting thing because if you look at this, an entrepreneur can really be a very lonely journey because we have the idea, we have that spark, and sometimes we are running ahead and we look back, no one is following us. I think that that an entrepreneur, again, we need to have a cause that we are really gunning for, so that we can actually survive the ups and downs that comes with the business, because there are bound to be a lot of ups and downs in the journey. And and also what one of the biggest things that I learned is that we attract the people who also share similar values with us, and it's important to work with people who have the same values, so that you can actually build a brand, a business that can go the distance, that can be a very enduring brand.
Thank you, Karen. That's fantastic. And that was Karen Leong from Influence Solutions here with us today. And do make sure, if you run 2 businesses, that you focus on one. It is like in a marriage, you really have to be there in the long run. You need to think you're gonna do this in 20 years from now. Surround yourself with the good people that believe in what you do and can help you to go forward. And if you do like this video, please do share it with your friends. We always highly appreciate it. Subscribe to our newsletters, and we talk to you next week.
You need a great idea, and then you need a lot of determination and perseverance, and you need to work hard